Okay, we are live. And thank you so much for joining us today. Um, and also, I have with me Jerry. So, I'm just going to start from yourself. So, like a brief introduction about yourself and what you do at Passage. And then I'm just going to flip it to Jerry as well.
Amazing. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you both today. My name's Bobby. I've been in technology entrepreneur for a little over a decade. My first company was this hardcore medical device company. I started working with Martin at Applyboard on building new businesses within Applyboard. So kind of an entrepreneur within the larger study abroad business of Applyboard. While there, we were obsessed about how to solve the financial access problem. That's what led a group of us to leave and start Passage. I'm the chief growth officer here. So I help make sure that the number of programs and schools and employers we're working with matches what the demand side needs. And then I find awesome people all over the world who are deserving of these opportunities on the other side.
Well, thank you so much for accepting to be here. I was on the space with Olu yesterday, and we briefly exchanged conversation. And I think we're gonna talk so extensively about that today. So, if you're just joining us today, we're talking about the study loan by Passage and the housing support for international domestic student newcomers by Payfile. Hi, Jerry. Have the floor. How are you today? How are you
Um,
doing? How's the weather?
it's pretty hot here in Nigeria.
Oh my goodness, and it's cold in Calgary. Oh, like minus 16. So tell us about Payfi.
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you clearly, yes.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Jerry Opara, Jerry Fideli. So I'm currently the head of sales for Payfi. And Payfi basically is looking forward to resolving issues like we are all familiar with the accommodation shortage in Canada and people having issues when coming into Canada in terms of um, not having guarantors. So PayFi is just here to solve those major problems to give them soft landing into Canada. Then my background experience, I've had over a decade of experience in the financial sector, more on cross-border payments, and now I'm with PayFi for us to resolve the issues on accommodation here in Canada.
Fantastic. Yeah, that the housing issue has always been a very big deal. I remember when I moved to Canada in 2020 at a very peak of COVID. I think we spent almost a month in an Airbnb before we could eventually get an apartment at UBC, and it was freaking expensive, and we had to pay a kind of a deposit of over like 1 month's rent. So Bobby, I'm kind of I'm very skeptical about I've had loan companies reaching out to me to say, "Oh, we want you to work with us." And one thing that really draw me to, Passage is the fact that you seems to be doing something different from other platforms. So, what is the catch for international students applying through Passage? What do they have to benefit that it's different from other platforms? What inspired you to start Passage in terms of supporting students with student loan, study loan?
It's a great question. So the group of us who are coming from Applyboard is the world's largest study abroad platform. Okay. We've helped 700,000 international students from 165 countries go to Canada, US, UK, Australia, Ireland. Through that time, we saw every flavor of student person imaginable. Okay. One of the things that we saw countless times was incredible students, extremely bright, hardworking, honest people who unfortunately came from families where they simply didn't have the money to send their son or daughter to better opportunities in Canada or wherever else. It struck us as completely stupid. Both stupid that how does this not exist in the world where the top brilliant people can't get access to better opportunities on one side, but on the other side, as a Canadian, why would we not, as a country, want to bring in the best and the brightest people for any type of job or opportunity? Why are we focusing so much on people with just money? And that's nothing against the people with money, right? It just is a fact of life right now that I really hate, that you can be incredible and still be stuck. So we have thought for an extremely long time how to solve this problem. This goes all the way back to Martin Basiri, the founder of Applyboard and now founder of Passage. His own journey from Iran was the same. He was a precocious engineer building new technologies, trying to build companies in Iran where there are no opportunities. He dreamed of going to school and he never thought he had any chance whatsoever. He met one person who introduced him to a professor at the University of Waterloo. That professor convinced the school to give him a full scholarship.
Wow.
He was able to come to Canada and then bring his family and then start Applyboard and so on. He says to us all the time, I know students in my class that were way smarter than me, and they're still stuck in Iran. Why? The only thing that was different was someone gave me an opportunity and gave me access to better. We've talked forever about how to solve this problem, and it's an incredibly hard problem to solve. Frankly speaking, that's why this problem exists today. It's not just a lending or money problem. It's an access problem. If I just go and give checks to everybody around the world and you have a 0% chance of getting your visa approved, guess what? You don't get any better access. The real problem is, how do you solve deeper access? How do I show IRCC in Canada that this student coming from a country that has traditionally very high fraud rates is an incredible, legitimate, genuine student? That differentiation is what Passage does. I focus on access. Money is one component of that, but I don't view myself as a lender. I view myself as a technology builder. One of the features of my access product is money. That's a little technical and we can go into more details, but I think, like, to me, I feel really strongly about that point.
Yeah, you mentioned something really inspiring and intriguing, coming from the perspective of myself being in the DEI space. We've had issues where IRCC will call certain countries dirty 30, and then because I'm from Nigeria, we've seen cases of rejection, decline in visa rates. What makes Passage different? Because we've seen this morning someone reached out to me to say he got rejected because he used a particular loan company, which is one of the top big guys in the community. So what makes Passage different? Is it like IRCC recognizes them better? Is there an MOU with IRCC that, because some of my audience would say that we want to be sure that a visa will be guaranteed. So what makes Passage different from other platforms that people need to come to Passage?
Number one, if you ever think the government will give you a guarantee of a visa, you're dreaming. It's the government, and they control the most sensitive aspect of a country's security and borders. They're never going to give anybody a guarantee on anything. That's just a fact of life. The real way to think about it is the IRCC and border agents are smart human beings who have a purpose. They want to limit fraud rates of people coming into Canada. They're human beings who are reviewing a huge number of applications that are incredibly complex, some involving marriage certificates, adoption papers, who knows what. These people are human beings. They're prejudiced. So imagine you're anybody and you see your first application of the day is fraud from a country. The second application that day was fraud, third fraud, fourth fraud, fifth fraud. The sixth one is perfect. You don't think that they're going to have this idea in their head that this is a fraudulent application? The real answer is they're human beings, and this is what's happening today. The baby is being thrown out with the bathwater, not because they're bad people, because they have bad intentions. It's because they have limited time and they have an incredible number of applications to go through. What Passage does is we're building the technology that's based around these people's workflows so that we can easily help them identify the legitimate, genuine students from the high chance of fraud students, period. Part of that is money. Part of it is trust. How do you generate trust? We know that if you're going to submit a study permit today, there are different ways to show that you have the money required to come into Canada.
Right.
In some countries, you can buy a GIC. That's the gold standard, by far the best. Why? It's because the money is sitting in a Canadian bank that a border agent knows the brand of RBC, knows the brand of CIBC. That's why they trust it. You can't expect one border agent to understand the 500,000 different banks all around the world and which ones are legit and which ones are fraud. It's impossible. The point is that you need to connect good people with the ways that these border agents and others will trust. And that's what we're trying to do. It won't be perfect in day one, but I know it's going to be a lot better than what exists today.
Well, yeah, sure. I must confess that I've never seen this kind of initiative before, and I was very quick to tell the community even before we met, and when I showed Jerry that we had an email list already of about 2,000 people interested, he was like, "Wow!" Within 24 hours, because there are people that have this part of this money, but they are not able enough, especially to kind of settle the other part. So in terms of, I'm just going to go to Jerry. You recently had an agreement, a partnership with Passage. So how do Payfile, how do you comment? People talk about, housing as a big deal in Canada. A process is getting the admission itself. What does Passage, what does Payfile, what is the role of Payfile in all this partnership? We can't hear you. You're muted. Let me
Okay,
unmute him.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the role of Payfi in collaboration with Passage is to ensure a smooth flow, like a good process flow, whereby students will get their loan coming through education and they don't get stranded. They have to get accommodations to stay in Canada. And for the landlords that request for credit histories, guarantors, so Payfi stands as a guarantor for these people, just to ensure they don't pay lump sum of money to the landlord just because they want to take up an apartment. So we stand as a guarantor, build up some insurance policy that covers them when they default, and also help in building credit histories for them.
Okay. In that regard, so what are the documents required by students? I mean, I'm gonna go back to Bobby to ask questions about, the because some of my audience already started applying through the Passic page. So what are the documents required by students, if they are interested in your product, in the real sense that do they have to be in Canada? Do they even need an admission letter? Do they need a letter of LOA of acceptance? Do they even need to pay their tuition before they can apply for your housing support?
Great
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
Jerry,
So I think some of the questions pertain to Bobby. So let Bobby speak, then I'll take on the other part.
Okay, Bobby, you start.
Yeah, so if you think of today, there are three major processes within study abroad. There's the school application, the loan application, or getting a scholarship, getting the money. Third, study permit application. So Passage takes the school and loan application, puts them together, right? We also then help with the study permit application in terms of providing a customized letter of support that shows that you have 2 years of tuition covered as well as first year living costs. This is what gives such high confidence for Passage applicants. So what is a student required? The same documents you would need for an application through any other platform. So for any program, George Brown or otherwise, they have eligibility requirements. There's one set if you're going for a 2-year diploma, a set if you're going for a 1-year postgrad certificate program, and so on. You're generally always going to have proof of your education. That might be high school, it might be secondary, depending on the type of program. Those need to be notarized, and usually you need a transcript notarized as well. You almost always need proof of English proficiency. For a huge swath of Africa, you're exempt as long as the medium of instruction of your last education was in English.
Right.
After that, you need a valid passport, and you need to be able to provide basic information like a permanent legal address and some other basic information. A lot of it is contained within that. So there's not really a lot of additional documentation or stress required to submit through Passage, but we submit on your behalf, or you submit via Passage. We can get you an LOA within 10 days. We give you the full financing required to access the program, and we give a customized letter of support that helps you get your study permit.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I want to, before I go to Jerry, you mentioned something about, because one of my audience was trying to apply yesterday, and I think she was trying to apply for a diploma program, and then she got kicked out when she uploaded a bachelor degree. I don't know if that is some conflict, like if you're going to apply for diploma, do you have to still upload your bachelor degree, or your NECO or WAEC results is sufficient?
Great question. It's super specific by the program and by the source country. So even it will be different even if you're coming from Kenya versus Turkey versus Ghana versus Nigeria. So keep in mind, like, there's a lot of specificity based on the country you're from and what program you're applying to. There shouldn't be a problem if you're uploading your bachelor certificate or transcript. You just need to make sure you're uploading it as a secondary document. So
Okay.
for example, if you're going to apply for a 2-year diploma program, the software is expecting to see a high school transcript
Exactly.
and certifications. If you have a bachelor, that's totally fine, but you upload it as additional documentation.
Okay.
You don't upload it in the main section.
Okay, that is duly noted. Okay, Jerry, we mentioned about the question was about document required to assess the housing support. So what document is required from our audience that are interested in that?
Okay, so they are basically similar to what Passage requests for, right? But the slight difference is Payfi is dealing with both students and general immigrants. Now, in this regards, we need the bank statements from them. So we need to know which of the permits are they coming in as an international student, through work permit, permanent resident. So we need to get this document. We also need a government issued ID card, their international ID card. Then we need source of income. So we want to be sure they can pay their bills. For people coming in, how do you intend to pay your bills on a monthly basis? So that's where we solidify the request on recent bank statements. So we are sure you still have those funds in your account. Then the landlords also request for the credit history and guarantors to give you the house. That's where Payfi comes in. So upon paying timely every month, Payfi builds your credit history when you pay through Payfi.
Wow. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. You've heard from Jerry all the documents you required, and if you have further questions, Payfile, they're available on Twitter, they're available on LinkedIn, they're available on Instagram as well. So back to Bobby. There've been two questions already, which I want to also address. Like, people are interested in the repayment plan. It's always been like, I've seen cases where people say you can pay up to, like, someone was asking me, like, how feasible it's a plan to pay $100,000 in 5 years, offered by one of those loan company. So what is the repayment plan for Passage? How does it work? Like, do people need to start paying when they're in Canada or after they are done with their studies?
Great question. So what we do is we've mimicked the GIC process. Okay. So if you're aware, if you're in India or you're in other countries, you can apply for a visa through the SDS pathway. Basically, it's trying to give you faster application processing times. Again, trust is a huge component of that. And that's why they buy the GIC. The GIC basically spits out money into the person's bank every month. This is how the border agents and others know that the student actually has the money available. Obviously, there are legitimate students who have the money in bank statements in a foreign bank, but we all know Photoshop and other tools exist where it's hard to know which are true, which are false. Okay?
All right.
That's the core idea. So what we do is part of the loan we send to the tuition directly. So we pay off your tuition to the school directly. The second component, we pay $1,720 to your bank account every month for the first year. The student must start making loan payments 1 month after they start school. So if you have the September intake, your first payment is due October. Now, if you take the $1,720 that I'm putting into your bank account as part of your living expenses, you can subtract out the amount that you must pay me as a loan payment, and you net out to about $1,000 per month.
Okay.
That's to help cover rent, food, and basics. Now, we know about 85% of international students pursue part-time work on campus, what have you. So we know students are already having this behavior because they're looking to fund their second year living expenses or to repay a loan more quickly. So Passage never charges any fees. In fact, we want you to repay the loan as fast as possible. You're going to pay me less money, but it's going to obviously provide more flexibility to the people. So we understand that life happens, especially when you're moving abroad. So if the student, we believe, is genuine and they've just come across hardships, we can be flexible. We can offer 3-month deferment plans that allow you to get your life in order as long as you're a genuine student. We'll review this on a case-by-case basis, but we want people to know that if you're genuine and we believe you're here to do the right thing, we can be pretty flexible to make sure it works for you.
Oh, wow. Great. So you're saying you have a flexible repayment plan?
Yes, the loan repayment starts, but there are ways to defer the loan 3 months, 3 times over the course of the loan.
Oh, wow. But does that attract additional interest or still remain the same?
Nope, same.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. So there's a question about, what about those who are already in Canada and due to some issues from back home cannot keep up with the payment and they want to change school to one in partnership with Passage? Are they also eligible? So the scenario is this person came to Canada, had issues with finance, wants to change the school, wants to apply through Passage. Is that possible?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's actually a thing that we're seeing a huge amount of volume on. A lot of students who were signed up to these PPPs that are now facing hardship due to the change in government policy, but also people who are going to like 1-year business programs and now are trying to figure out how to align themselves with where permanent residency draws are going in Canada. Our programs were handpicked because we know where this policy is going and we want students to be able to be successful, but also to help Canada solve its labor shortages. So absolutely, if you're onshore, 100% we can help. We can either offer loans just for the tuition costs or tuition and living costs. So it's up to you depending on how much money you have saved and the length of the program you want to study. But absolutely reach out, we can help.
Okay. So do they reach out through the major platform? Because we have the link dropped in the YouTube as well.
Absolutely. So the main place you're going to go check out programs and any of the specific financing details is app.passage.com, app.passage.com. If you find us anywhere on the internet, from our main website, our Instagram, our WhatsApp, you can message and we'll make sure we get back to you quickly.
Great. So I'm just going to go back to Jerry. So Jerry, apart from providing this housing support, are there other benefits people get from opening an account with Payfile?
Yes. So basically, what we also try to do to help these people is build their credit history with Equifax.
Okay. So how does that work?
So that's, like I said earlier, upon timely payment, we ask this applicant, they have the option to pay directly to the landlord or pay through Payfi. When you pay through Payfi, we use that information to build your credit history that you're able to pay on time. So we always pass down this information to Equifax to build your credit history. This helps also to go a long way, because I think in Africa or anywhere outside Africa mostly, there's this underrated note about credit history. So we are also trying to sensitize new immigrants or students coming into Canada the importance of building their credit history.
Wow. Okay. So they have an opportunity to build a credit history, which is important, especially, for people like us that when you get a PR and you want to buy a property, your credit history is very key. And which means that you're coming through Passage, you're going through Payfile, you're getting the study loan, you're getting the housing support, you're getting integrated in the system. In further to the question I asked you yesterday, Bobby, and you kind of enlightened me yesterday, even so many people asking questions about, I want to come to Canada for project management, I want to come to Canada for hospitality. I could see some questions in the chat saying, oh, there are some courses that are not currently on the Passage website. Is there any reason for that? And second question is, do you have plans in the future to further onboard other institutions and other courses?
It's a great question. So the way that I like to say this is Passage is doing something that no one has ever done, and that's providing financing, not just to the top of the top students going to the Harvards of the world, But to people coming in for important jobs like nurses, trades, manufacturing, this is more targeting towards the middle class in countries like Nigeria and others. This has never existed on planet Earth. Okay, so there is a lot of people beyond ourselves that we have to convince that this is a great idea for this to be successful. What does that mean? It means the better I can show that I'm right and that I think all of these people around the world are incredible and they just don't have the opportunity to show it, the more flexibility I'm going to get to push the collateral requirements lower, the interest rates lower, open up more programs, etc. I need to show success so that I can really unlock this for more people. So we've purposefully chosen a select number of programs that the data shows over the last 10 years are best performing programs that lead to student success. Why? Again, I really want to be able to package all of the amazing results of our first cohort of students and then show everybody else how amazing this is working so I can open it up to more schools and programs the following years. Now, maybe a key point, Passage will never fund all of the programs, okay? No matter what school I work with, I will individually pick the programs that I believe actually set students up for success because my incentives are directly aligned with my students. For me to be successful, I need every student to get a good job and do great things after. If our students are not successful, it guarantees that I won't be. So I need to do more work to help students make the right decision of what programs lead to success.
Wow, thank you for that. I think the key word is helping students to succeed, especially when you think about home away from home, you want to make Canada your home. There are questions about collateral as well, and I want you to really explain what does the 50% or what does the collateral mean? How can people put in the collateral? Is it just about cash? Because someone just asked a question that if my visa is denied, what happens to the loan? Is it like you get a loan before you put in the collateral, or you put in the collateral before you get the loan?
So think about a collateral in another situation, like a mortgage, right? The bank gives you the money to buy the house, but they have the house. If you don't make payments for whatever reason, they can sell the house and get their money back. That's what collateral is. It's aligning our incentives to make sure that I'm convinced you're genuinely going to try to repay me. Passage is doing the same thing on a lower scale where we just say, hey, unfortunately, the world is the way the world is today, and there's a huge amount of fraud in international education. Not Nigeria specific, but across the world. This is true. For Passage to be able to get higher visa acceptance rates over time for people in countries that are traditionally associated with higher fraud, I need to show that I can differentiate the genuine students from the not so genuine students. Right now, the method through which I do that is requiring students to offer up a prepayment. So the collateral is not like a house that I'm going to come and sell your house if you don't make a payment. We are using this form of prepayment only to make sure that the students' incentives are aligned with Passages. If you're a student who is really secretly intending to come into Canada through Passage, not show up and study at school, switch schools immediately to a cheaper, worse version, or flee to the US or something, which is done commonly right now, you're not going to do it through Passage because we have this cash collateral. Right? That's all I'm intending to do with it. I don't have any other purpose except for that. In fact, every month I take some of the collateral that you send and I repay your loan with it. By the end of your loan, I don't have $1. It's all gone to your own education. I don't want the money. I just want to make sure I can prove to the government that they're incredible, genuine people all over the world, so that over time the visa acceptance rates get higher and higher and higher. So ultimately I can get more people access. That's the whole game plan here.
Definitely. The game plan is access and showing governments that there are legitimate people that wants to come to Canada to study. I mean, one concern for me is also like, the last data that was released about the number of international students that, opted for asylum, which is quite very, disheartening and tiring. And, I've seen cases like this where people write online that, even the government in Canada are doing within their reach to even deport some students as well. So I think this is a very good initiative. And so are there plans to extend this initiatives to other countries as well, apart from Canada?
100%. As more students come through the platform, we are training algorithms that help us predict fraud. So not only for the students coming into Canada, I'll be able to get collateral lower and lower and lower as my software can better predict fraud. I don't need the structural protection that the collateral provides. The whole idea of Passage is if you're in Lagos, I want to be able to fund you if you want to come to Toronto or Taipei or Tangier, Tunis or Tijuana. If the world is offering better opportunities for you someplace, I want to build the infrastructure that will allow us to fund you to pursue those dreams regardless of where they are. That's ultimately what we're building and why I say, hey, I'm not really a lender. I'm a technology platform. Right now, it looks like I give out money, but that's only kind of step one.
Right. And there are other things ahead. You mentioned support for study visa, and I want a better clarification on that. I understand like you want to give people like certificates, and I was talking to Sheon, the co-founder of Payfile, and I mentioned something really similar to the block account in Germany that you get funds every month into your account. So in that regards, is there like, because of visa rejection rate, are there like personalized support from Passage for students that want to apply for the visa?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a partnership with the most prestigious Canadian immigration law firm. We can help students with their study permit application and ensure that we are giving them every possible chance of success. That's really important to us.
And is that free?
Yep.
It's free.
Yep, we cover it.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. I think we should let this get out. So, there's a question here. What is the refund process for the collateral if my visa is denied? This is from Adeyinka.
48-hour full refund, no fees, no cost whatsoever.
Okay. Adeyinka, you can hear that. So you don't have to be scared. Someone asked me yesterday, I want to be sure I will get the loan before I can apply for the admission. I was like, wow. Okay.
Actually, this is a really technical point, but it's an important one. So right now there's two steps blocking a student. There's what's going to happen with the letter of attestation. So even if you get an LOA, does the school give you an attestation letter so you can apply for your study permit? Step two is, does your study permit get accepted or denied? We want to make sure this is risk-free for students. So we will recount all costs if you get denied for either of those. So there's no risk applying through Passage right now. Two, the way that the loan works is that you get your LOA, you are shown on the LOA the instructions of how to send the money to the escrow account. Once the money is in that account, that's what unlocks the loan. You get the letter of support that you can immediately use for your study permit. And then in any situation where there's an issue, you get a full refund in 48 hours.
Okay. And you already said that. So if they want to assess the study visa support, they would have to, contact Passage, I believe.
Once you get your letter of acceptance, you let us know if you're already working with a partner that offers immigration services. If not, we'll help you get connected to the right people at our partner, and you can get started on your study permit application.
Thank you for that. So it's been a wonderful time. And, if you're just joining us, I have Bobby Green, the Chief Growth Officer of Passage. Passage offers a flexible study loan for students interested in studying in Canada. And you need to provide 50%, half of your tuition. Maybe 2 years tuition before you can access this loan, and you need to get an admission, and the admission has to be from listed institutions on Passage. Because there's a question here, someone asking me that, what if I apply to other institutions in Canada? Can I also get the loan from Passage?
Unfortunately, no, because of the work that I do to vet which programs lead to success. It's an incredibly onerous process that takes a lot of time and analysis. There are something like 15 to 20,000 different programs across Canada. That's a lot of work. So if I don't offer a program, I'm not saying that means it's a bad program. I'm saying that it takes a long time for me to go through a school and say, hey, here are the 18 programs that I'll stand behind and say, hey, you have a really good chance of success if you come study here and move on. Over time, we'll add more schools and programs, but we needed to start small to make sure that all of the students get our full attention and focus, so that they have the highest chance of success for year one.
Right.
Yeah.
Sources has always been the drive, which for me it's inspiring and motivational because I also want my audience wherever they are in the world, to succeed. And what I think about for them now, what's next after they get opportunities and other scholarships. And so, Jerry, I'm going to ask this question: that okay, if someone gets an admission via Passage and I decide to not, use Payfile for the rent finance guarantee, can I still get accommodation on Payfile?
Yeah, we can actually help you source for accommodation at a fee.
Okay, so that it's so the whole process is like you could just start from Passage to Payfile, then you get a candidate. So there's a question from Adeyinka. What is this goes to Bobby? What is the deposit process for the collateral, considering the restrictions in Nigeria at the moment for FX?
So what happens is when you get your letter of acceptance from George Brown, you're getting a customized letter of acceptance that's designed just for the Passage and George Brown partnership. On the letter of acceptance itself, you'll see the specific instructions of how and where to send the money. We use Payfi for accommodation, but we use Flywire as a method to transfer the money across borders. And even though there are restrictions, not just in Nigeria, but across most of South Asia, education remittances are almost always excluded. We've not had problems with partners in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa so far.
Okay. You mentioned George Brown. I think you've been mentioning George Brown a whole lot. So is it only George Brown that's on Passage website?
We have two sets of programs. The top of the top universities across Canada. These are the University of Toronto, the University of Waterloo, the most prestigious schools in the country. And we work with about 100 programs that are the top master's programs. You're talking Masters of Computation, Electrical Engineering, Artificial Intelligence, and so on. For those programs, you go get your LOA, you come to us for a loan. That's one set. The second set is Passage partnership with George Brown. So George Brown is the only college we're working with this year. Why? Of all of the data we saw, George Brown is performing by far the best for students. Also because it's located in the heart of downtown Toronto, students typically have an easier time finding part-time work to support themselves while during studies. And they provide really great employment support that help you get set up for success after school.
Fantastic. Okay. I think there's another question. Can I have access to Passage support for the loan and the study permit application if I have an admission already from one of their partner schools?
If it's for one of the eligible programs, we can chat about it. Generally speaking, if you're going through a college program, you need to get admission through us because we're doing additional checks. That's how part of our partnership works with George Brown. If you're going to one of the master's programs, absolutely. In fact, a letter of admission you get from those schools is part of the loan application. So master's, yes. College, maybe.
Okay, great. So another question from my hand, which has come from my interaction with people that have had access to us talking about this Passage Payfile, partnership is, so are there kind of, are there kind of a support, initiatives apart from, study permit, apart from the loan? Do you you talk about sources a lot, which I'm kind of impressed. So would you provide support for students when they come to Canada, especially maybe when they're done with school, they want to look for a job? Do you organize job fairs? What are the incentives that you could help these students to, kind of propel them for sources in Canada when they eventually land?
100%. Think about my incentives. I need every student to be successful. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to repay their loans, and that hurts me, right? I'm going to make sure that students are successful, period. I'll never sacrifice that.
All right. So you've heard it from Bobby. Your hope for sources. I always tell people that work with us at Scholarships Cafe. The energy you give to us, we give it back to you. So we all have the resources and the infrastructures to support you. So I think we've been here for about 40 minutes, and I also want to give you the rest of your day. So what would be your your final words to my audience that are looking forward to using your platform to come to Canada, and how soon can they come? In the old, phase of, limited attestation letter, the provinces are still not sure. Alberta is saying, okay, we've started. BC is saying we've started. So how do you think they can be guaranteed that they are hope for success if they use your platform?
I will always resist the word guarantee. We will give people the guarantee. Like, I can guarantee I'll give you the best chance of success,
Right.
but there are forces outside of me that I can't control. Here's what I would say. Early evidence is already out. British Columbia and others are starting to issue attestation letters. If you look at what's happening in those provinces, you can figure out what's going to happen in Canada or in Ontario. The colleges who are offering the highest quality products that are leading to success have been just fine. They're not being affected hardly at all. Largely, it's private colleges, and in particular, these like private-public partnerships that are being more heavily impacted. So in other words, it might feel like there's a lot of uncertainty, but there's really not if you're going to come through Passage to one of these programs at George Brown. We also do more work to make sure people feel comfortable by saying, hey, we'll cover all your costs if you're not approved for the attestation letter or your study permit. If you're interested in coming for September, you really want to get your application in by the end of March. Okay. Right. That part is important. So I would urge people to get their documents together and submit sooner than later. Or you're going to have to wait a few months before you can start applying for the January intake.
Thank you so much. I think to Jerry, there's a question for you. Do we need a proof of funds with Payfile even when we have a running loan with Passage?
So you need a proof of funds, right? Because is this okay? Let me streamline this. For students, we probably might not need those proof of funds since your loan already covers, and this amount, maybe we have to have that conversation with Passage. This stipulated amount will be taken out automatically for your rent.
Right.
Then we don't need the proof of funds. But for general immigrants, definitely we need the proof of funds.
All right, fantastic. And then what is your last word for my audience that are interested in using, Payfile to seek for accommodation in Canada?
Yeah, so I would say to them, Canada is really looking forward to having every good individual. So, and that's why we're here to support in any way we can. And I'm so happy this collaboration, it's going to ease a whole lot of stress in terms of people who don't have the money, but they have the right potential to come into Canada. Passage is going to help those students, while Payfi help them land an accommodation successfully and settle at the right time.
Thank you so much. Lastly, to Bobby, because we have an ecosystem that we help to students to find and apply for scholarships. Do George Brown and any of your partners offer scholarships at all?
There are so many different scholarship providers, from one-off foundations, charities, school departments within schools, that it's impossible for me to cover all the topics here. In fact, maybe you're the expert here. The short answer is yes, you absolutely can apply for a scholarship, and you'll just have more, I guess, margin of safety, more comfort, more money. Right. We'll still give you the same amount of money.
Definitely.
So definitely do both. I always recommend, if you can get a scholarship, do that first.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today. It's an honor to have you, Bobby. And I hope we're going to repeat this soon, maybe on our X space, as well as, on Instagram. There's a question: can 1-year program apply for the loan? Please go to Passage website, the list of programs. There's a catalog, there's FAQ, and I will also still be engaging people on Twitter. You can drop your comments in the chat. I would love to answer you. And because we're also working with Payfile along with Passage, we are here for access. We're here for your sources. And thank you so much for coming, Bobby. Thank you so much for coming, Jerry. And we're looking forward to the further collaboration and helping international students to achieve their goals and academic dreams in Canada. So bye for now. Thank you so much.